Welcome, everyone. I'm Sandra Bargman. A few years ago, I wrote and performed a solo show called The Edge of Every Day, which was an exploration of the rough edges and contradictions we all face and grapple with. The show hit a nerve, and the relevance of the topic would only grow over time more than I could have foreseen. So, here we are. Real talk with real people, sharing stories and perspectives that spark provocative invitations to leap out of what's safe, on the edge of every day. Thanks for listening. Hello, everyone. We are live in the Hive. Thank you for joining me on this, the 10th episode of The Edge of Every Day, here on talkradio.nyc. And again, Happy New Year. We are starting this new year recommitted to courageous conversations and recharged to face what awaits in 2022. For those of you who are tuning in for the first time, and for those of you who don't know me yet, I encourage you to check out my bio on talkradio.nyc, or of course you can visit my website, sandrabargman.com, or tune into any of my previous episodes. In a nutshell, this show is about celebrating triumphs, pushing boundaries, and exploring rough edges. Through conversations and shared stories with friends and colleagues, it's my hope that we can begin to understand our edges. And what I mean by edges is those places where we are fearful, those places where we're resistant to change, those places where paradoxes and contradictions live in our beliefs and in our understandings, both internally and collectively in the world around us. Those places we don't want to look at. We live in challenging times, but we must come to understand that life isn't black or white. It's an embrace of both. And the more we recognize our own edges and get real about them, the more we can help others to do the same. And that, I fully believe, can help to change the world. So, thanks again for tuning in. And without further ado, it's time to introduce our guest this evening. Stephen Hanks is a writer, editor, publisher, entrepreneur, producer, reviewer, performer, master of ceremony, PR manager, baseball coach, and sports enthusiast. Stephen has had a 40-plus year career as a magazine publisher and editorial director for numerous national magazines, including the award-winning archaeology magazine for kids called Dig. He has written and or edited 6 sports books, including biographies of Wayne Gretzky and Bo Jackson, and the oral history of the 1969 New York Jets Super Bowl team. Stephen served as a surrogate speaker and media monitor for the New York Bill Clinton for President campaign. Stephen began his career in New York City Cabaret as a reviewer for Cabaret scenes in 2010. He became lead reviewer and editor of BroadwayWorld.com Cabaret section in 2012. Over a 4-year period, Stephen produced 7 cabaret variety shows for Urban Stage's Winter Rhythms Festival. In 2014, Stephen produced and hosted Broadway World New York Cabaret award shows at the Metropolitan Room and the renowned Joe's Pub. From 2013 to 16, he performed 12 Don McLean tribute shows at various New York City cabaret venues. Stephen hosted and produced 5 Blue Wave Democratic Candidate Fundraising Shows in 2018. He has been a member of the International Al Jolson Society since 1985 and has produced 5 64-page journals for this organization. Stephen moved to Sedona, Arizona in July 2021, where he is currently on the board of the Democrats of the Red Rocks, and he has joined forces with the annual Sedona International Film Festival. He is a contributing political essayist at medium.com and plannedman.com. Welcome, Stephen.
Hello, Sandra, my dear friend. Wow.
Hello, my dear friend. Welcome to the Edge of Every Day.
When I hear an introduction like that, I'm reminded of one of my favorite lines in movies, which was Cary Grant's line in North by Northwest, when he says, "I'm beginning to think I'm underpaid."
Oh, excellent. Right? Well, it's good to think that.
Yeah.
Renaissance man, you multi-hyphenate, as I like to call it.
Now, I now want to put my reading glasses on so I can see this amazing venue that you are situated in, which I know is called The Plum.
You're adorable. You've been here.
There we go. Let me see. Oh, my goodness.
Oh, I love this. Oh, see, my goodness. Cool. It's fabulous.
You've got the plum and I've got the teal.
Right, exactly. Well, just real quickly, I'm going to pitch.
We have very edgy colors.
Edgy colors indeed, like your shirt. I'm going to pitch this plum real quickly because it is my salon space and it is in sync with the Edge of Every Day, and you can see the poster of it up there over the door.
I hope I sing in that room one day.
It's about having fierce conversations, as the salons were created to be in the 16th and 17th century, and then they just went through the end of the 16th century. They moved through the 17th and 18th century through France and into modern times. It's about having fierce conversations about politics, literature, the times that we find ourselves in. And it was my hope to create that with this gathering space, and also a place to do, intimate weddings, gatherings of all kinds, but primarily combining art with education and a salon space. Yeah. So you can check out, for those listening in and you want to see more photos of it and read about it, go to The Plum at th2.com. It's The Plum at Traver Hollow House. You can read all about it at that website. So thanks for that, Stephen.
Yeah, now I know you created this room a while ago, maybe more than a year ago, right?
Well, slowly but surely during the pandemic, thankfully.
That's what I was going to ask you. How frustrated has it been for you not to be able to do what you wanted to do in that room?
With this space. Well, yeah, of course, it's been frustrating. So much has been frustrating. So much of my work went poof, but there was some joy in because of the pandemic. I didn't put this together quickly. Mm-hmm. I was able to be a little, to take my time with choices and to have it feel, it was always going to be organic, but I was able to bring things together and find pieces and receive pieces from friends, tell them about what I was trying to create. People have donated. I have some beautiful antiques in here, but people have donated.
That looks great.
That will contribute to the warmth of the space for these salons. But yeah, I'm frustrated. I'm hoping that I've got all kinds of plans for the spring and summer this year, and hopefully I'll be able to realize them.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, we'll see.
All right.
Lots of cabaret shows, lots of salon space, some poetry, some fabulous weddings. We'll see. So, you told me about a fabulous quote today, and I want you by Sidney Poitier, who has recently left our presence, a fabulous man. I'd like you to retell that story and why you brought that up.
Yeah, I mean, the timing of that was so bizarre because I knew I was going to be doing the show with you about the edge of every day and our edges. And so last night, as has been my habit lately, since I moved to Sedona, my whole time mechanism has been warped.
I can imagine.
So I go to sleep a little earlier than I used to, and then I end up like getting up a couple hours after I go to bed, and then so last night I got up about 12:30 Sedona time and turned on the TV, and I'm scanning the channels, and I saw that Oprah on her own channel was doing these tribute shows. She was replaying these tribute shows that she had done for Sidney Poitier.
Oh, of course. I love it.
And so one of them was this incredible little dinner party that she put together. It was sort of a combination of her book club and a dinner party for Sidney Poitier's 80th birthday. So there were people that had read his book, you know, what they call everyday Americans, a phrase I hate, but anyway, for lack of a better one. And they were talking about the book and about his childhood, and he talked about when he was very young, he considered himself and thought of himself as an outsider. And he thought other people looked at him as an outsider, and not just because he was African American in New York, but for a whole raft of reasons. And the quote, and I couldn't believe he said this, he was like, you know, an outsider is somebody that lives on the edge or walks on the edge, and you just hope that you don't fall over. Ugh. And what, not only was it timely because we were going to do this show, but it resonated with me because, you know, my interpretation of your Edge of Everyday theme, as I've said to you before, is that it's the kind of phrase that you can bring your own interpretation to what it means. You know, is it about being edgy? Is it about living on the edge? You know, there may be 4 or 5 other definitions that people have for what Absolutely. That means. And, you know, my kind of relationship to that quote that Sidney Poitier had was, you know, I feel like during my life I have lived a little bit on the edge at times, but not to the point where I've fallen over. Now other people might dispute that, knowing my past and career, but you know, and I think it means, you know, living on the edge is being willing to take chances. And
exactly, you know, it doesn't have to be a negative way of understanding it. Falling over the edge, that doesn't have to be exactly the way it's taken. You know, I've described it a variety of ways. You know, it in the metaphysical world, the spiritual world, the psychological world. The edge is about the shadow side of life, and that's based on Carl Jung, the shadow self, the side of, you know, we present this really light, and it's talked about in spiritual circles, and you know how it's social media. We just present what's light and pretty, and we don't want to talk about or share or look at, or sometimes in some people even be conscious of things that we're embarrassed about, or you know, be it a belief or a behavior or a relationship, you know, things that we just don't want to look at. Like I said in my opening, that, you know, these beliefs that are incongruous with the way that we like to present ourselves. I mean, you know, racism in the United States is a perfect collective shadow, and white supremacy is a spot-on, enormous place of a lot of people who's, I'm not a racist, they have no idea the shadow side of that work, the collective shadow side. So, you know, that's really what I talk about.
Well, don't get me started on the white supremacy thing.
You can risk new things, or you can be on the edge of a belief system, or like I like to think of, edge walking the communities that, you know, that I'm in. I'm not in the center of them. And I've come to learn that that's a place I like to be, because I like to do hybrids. I like to have my foot in a lot of different things, and you can't necessarily, I'm not afraid to be in the middle, but it's not where I want to be.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people think that people who live on the edge are iconoclastic, or they're rebels, or, and those kind of things are only describe someone if you subscribe to a certain norm of the ways you're supposed to act in society.
Absolutely.
Right?
And that's the perfect place for us to take our first break. And when we come back, we're going to talk with our edgy guest, Stephen Hanks, about how he got into all of his work.
Wow. We got time for on the show?
When we come back.
Are you a business owner? Do you want to be a business owner? Do you work with business owners? Hi, I'm Stephen Fry, your small and medium-sized business, or SMB guy, and I'm the host of the new show, Always Friday. While I love to have fun on my show, we take those Friday feelings of freedom and clarity to discuss popular topics on the minds of SMBs today. Please join me and my various special guests on Friday at 11 a.m. on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
Are you on edge? Hey, we live in challenging, edgy times, so let's lean in. I'm Sandra Bargman, the host of The Edge of Every Day, which airs each Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on talkradio.nyc. Tune in live with me and my friends and colleagues as we share stories and perspectives about pushing boundaries and exploring our rough edges. That's The Edge of Every Day on Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
Chipping around, kick my brain to the ground. These are the days it never rained, but it
on the edge of every day. And we are back. And we are back with Stephen Hanks.
You and I have been on the edge many days.
We have been. And we will get to that. We will get to that. That is the crux of it. But before I dive into that, I want to go back to your Ute, when you were Ute.
A Ute?
Oh, yeah. Go back to your early days. I know that you have been passionate about politics for a long, long, long time. And I know that you went to college for political science. What was the thing? What was the moment that you were inspired to get into politics? What was the moment that grabbed you?
I know this is maybe hard to believe or maybe not, but I mentioned this at one of the Blue Wave shows, if you remember. When we did one on the anniversary of Martin Luther King's assassination. And I talked about how I think I became passionate about politics and journalism at the very same time. And it was when I was 8 years old watching the coverage of the Kennedy assassination.
Oh, my.
And that I was not only was JFK like a hero to me already, and I started becoming interested in history at a young age, but I was just sort of obsessed with the 4 days of that coverage, and I just got very into politics. And I remember when I was I think it was 10 or 11, when John Lindsay was running for mayor of New York, and I found the campaign headquarters. And I just thought the coolest thing to do would be running around handing out flyers for a candidate. And I think part of the reason why I was so into it was because I looked at it as another sport. I mean, when I was a kid, sports was pretty much my whole life.
I totally get that. I
saw politics as a competitive sport. And
indeed, you're correct.
Yeah, and I wanted to root for somebody. And I had a rooting interest, and there was a winner and a loser, and you could get all
and a strategy
the strategy, definitely.
The chess of all the moves.
Oh yeah, it was another sport to me. So it just took off from there. And the reason why I became a political science major, not only because I was interested in politics, was because when I got to college, I knew I wanted to be a magazine writer, and so I was planning on being an English major, but the English subjects were so incredibly boring to me.
Right.
That I decided that if I was going to do this for a career, I would join the student newspaper and learn how to actually do a newspaper. And my major became something I was really interested in, which was politics. So when I wasn't working on the school newspaper constantly, I was on the baseball team. And because of that, I ended up having to go to college for 5 years because I took so many incompletes that I couldn't graduate on time because I was always doing some extracurricular activity.
Oh my!
So that's basically how it kind of started.
I love it. So wow! I didn't realize that you knew specifically that you wanted to get into. That was going to be one of my questions.
Oh, yeah,
why magazines of all the you know?
Well, you know what that was from? When I was a kid, I collected baseball cards. Mm-hmm. And then when I got to be a teenager, I thought I was ready to outgrow that. And I started collecting sports magazines. And I was already interested in writing, which was an influence that my dad gave me. We used to sit and read the sports sections of the papers every morning together. And when I was 14 years old, I decided that I wanted to create a sports magazine in New York when I was old enough to do that. And I eventually did.
And you did that. Yeah. And you totally did that. And you did you ever contemplate having a political magazine or getting involved with? I mean, did that even exist at that time? Any kind of publication that was into any of that?
I wrote political columns for my school paper. As far as doing a magazine, and then if I had that idea, JFK Jr. stole it from me.
Right.
Because I don't know if you remember the magazine.
I do. George.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I actually, for 3 semesters, for 3 years, I taught a course at NYU's School of Continuing Education in magazine editing and publishing. And one of my lessons for the class was to have them create a magazine idea and create a plan for it. And one of the students wanted to create a political magazine, and it was right at the time that JFK Jr. magazine was coming out, which I didn't think was very well executed, by the way. But you know how opinionated I am about those things.
You?
No.
Get out of here. So I want to touch on your award-winning magazine, Dig.
Yeah,
and I love that it was for young people. And then I want to jump into your entrance into the cabaret world. But please share with me and our listeners about Dig and how you came to that. What was the path to getting involved in that?
So when my wife B and I started New York Sports Magazine in 1983. I thought that was going to be my life's work. And I wanted it to be my life's work because it was my dream from the time I was a teenager. Well, it turned out to be a critical success and a financial failure, as a lot of these things are. Magazines, Broadway shows, and restaurants, the 3 things you should never put your money in. And although I was devastated by that not working, and it took me a while to grieve over that, there were things that I ended up doing in my life that I probably wouldn't have been able to do had that not happened. Yeah. And one of the things that I was able to do was I got involved in kids publishing just because I was looking for an editing job. Right. I got a job working at Scholastic for 3rd and 4th graders. Editing
I remember those. Yeah.
Scholastic News. Mm-hmm. Anyway, to try to make a long story short, a mutual friend turned me on to the fact that the Archaeological Institute of America, which had an adult magazine for about 50 years by that point, was interested in creating a children's magazine. And this person knew me and knew that I was in children's publishing. And the next thing I knew, I was being offered the opportunity to create from scratch an archaeology magazine for kids. And I
love this.
They had the idea of calling it Dig, which I thought was brilliant. dig this, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, perfect.
And what I was able to do, people ask me, well, how can you do this? You're not an archaeologist. And my answer would be, you know what? I have the experience of a magazine editor, and I know what a good story is, but I also have the curiosity about archaeology of a 12-year-old. And so that's the way I approached it. And I found writers.
And you surrounded yourself with knowledgeable people.
Exactly. And so the academics would submit these stories that were, as you can imagine, very dense. Yeah. And I would massage them into kid speak. And
fantastic.
And after about a year and a half, the company was entering the magazine into these competitions. And before I knew it, we had gotten educational publishing awards for the best children's magazine. And there was one competition giving an award for the best magazine launches over the previous 5 years. And somebody urged me to enter that. And I said, listen, there's no way that we can even be acknowledged. And we ended up being one of the 10 best magazine launches. And some of the other titles were the Oprah magazine, ESPN, the magazine.
Yes.
Yeah. And it was almost like which one does not belong, it was all. And again, to my chagrin, critical success and financial failure.
Well,
because magazines are very difficult to sustain at small circulations.
Yes, indeed.
So a lot of money was spent on it that they couldn't make back. It eventually got sold to another educational publisher.
That makes sense.
But they didn't. But they weren't in New York, and I wasn't.
Yeah, you couldn't.
They wanted me to stay on, but I wasn't going to move out of New York to continue working on it. So,
well. Their loss.
My wife keeps telling
our
me
gain.
That's
Their
the best
loss,
thing
our
I've
gain.
ever done.
So you leave this job and you move into Cabaret. Not quite that direct. But let's jump into that. I'm just getting that we're getting a 2-minute break. So I'm going to say let's hold off with any information to lead into this until we come back. And we're going to start out with how you got into the Cabaret community and move on from there.
Right.
When we come back with Stephen Hanks on the Edge of Every Day.
Howdy, I am Joseph Franklin McElroy, host of the new podcast, Gateway to the Smokies. It airs on talkradio.nyc every Tuesday night from 6 p.m. to 7. Every episode is dedicated to memorable experiences in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park and surrounding areas. This show features experts and locals who will expound upon the richness of culture, history, and adventure that awaits you in the Smokies. Tune in every Tuesday from 6 p.m. to 7 on talkradio.nyc.
Are you passionate about the conversation around racism? Hi, I'm Reverend Dr. TLC, host of the Dismantle Racism Show, which airs every Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc. Join me and my amazing guests as we discuss ways to uncover, dismantle, and eradicate racism. That's Thursdays at 11 o'clock a.m. on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a small business trying to navigate the COVID-19 related employment laws? Hello, I'm Eric Sauver, employment law business law attorney and host of the new radio show, Employment Law Today. On my show, we'll have guests to discuss the common employment law challenges business owners are facing during these trying times. Tune in on Tuesday evenings from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern Time on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Chipping around, kick my brain to the ground. These are the days it never rained, but it pours.
We are back with Stephen Hanks on the edge of every day. So let's dive in. I like to start out my show telling people how I know my guests. And of course, obviously, I know you through coming in when I came in with The Edge of Every Day. That's how you and I met. What was the spark? How did you come into the cabaret world? And then we'll dive into our Blue Wave shows.
Okay. So, music's always been a big passion of mine.
Your dad loved music, right?
Yeah. My dad and my mom actually was a fantastic singer, and she probably could have been a professional had she not had me. So she got pregnant with me when she was 19. And, I used to hear her singing around the house. My mom went to the same high school in the Bronx as Edie Gourmet. And Edie Gourmet was her idol. So when I was a kid, I'd hear my mom running around the house singing, "What did I have that I don't have?" And "If he walked into my life." And so and my dad was into Glenn Miller and all the big band stuff. So I was immersed in that pretty early on. And I love Broadway show music. And so sometime around 2007, I decided that as I've told you, I'm a big believer in living out fantasies. And people can draw their own conclusions.
That is the quintessential edge of every day.
Exactly. And one of my fantasies was singing in a show, like a lot of kids who, I would in my bedroom with the brush and singing into it,
Oh, yeah.
So I found the 92nd Street Y was giving a course in cabaret performance. And at the end of these rehearsal sessions, they would book a room like Don't Tell Mama. And so a group of us, 5 or 6 of us, would perform a show, and each of us would get 2 or 3 songs. And I figured that would be my exposure. It never occurred to me that I would do a show, because I felt you would have to audition, as I found out later was not the case. Nobody would pick me because I'm not a professional singer. So I lived out that fantasy. And then around when on my 55th birthday, my wife took me to the Iguana restaurant where Dana Lorge, the late Dana Lorge, was doing an open mic show. And I was sitting at a table, and there was a copy of Cabaret Scenes magazine on the table. And I started thumbing through it, and I was working in an advertising sales job at the time and hated it. And I was desperate to have a writing outlet. Mm-hmm. So I went through this magazine, and I thought, I've never done critical writing before. It's one of the few types of writing that I had never done. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to try it. So I thought, I'll write to Frank Dane of Cabaret Scene, send him my resume and some clips, and tell him I want to review shows. And he said yes. And boom, I was a cabaret reviewer. And that was in 2010, at the end of 2010. And I wrote reviews for Cabaret Scenes for a few years. Apparently people thought I was pretty good.
You worked very hard to educate yourself on the whole, as I recall, on the whole, the genre. And it's not like you just walked in and went,
Oh God, I was so
did your research.
I was so intimidated by the idea of making sure that I sounded like I knew I was talking about. Just to write a 700-word review, I did research, like, as the kids say, up the wazoo. I don't know, I may not say that.
Excellent. And for people listening in, just real quickly, Iguana at the time was, I don't know if it still is, but upstairs it was the place to go. And Dana Lorge, it was a revered and well-loved cabaret singer in the cabaret community in New York City, just for those listening in.
And then after a couple of years, I moved over to BroadwayWorld.com, which had a cabaret section that you could not find. You talk about an archaeological dig. That was, that was what trying to find the cabaret section on Broadway World was. So they brought me in as the editor, and I really pushed them to give it more of a voice
of a platform. Yeah.
And so eventually we created the Broadway World Awards for Cabaret, and I hosted the shows and produced the shows, and the award winners did performances, and that was oodles of fun, as you can imagine.
Oh, completely.
So and then, from there, I just decided I wanted to perform and produce shows, and just, I don't go in with one toe when I do things.
You dive in. Absolutely dive in. So yes, and we talked about the show, the variety of shows that you have done in the variety of rooms that you have worked in and performed in. But I'd like for us to, just for sake of time, I'd like for us to dive into the Blue Wave because of the times that we live in. This is how I know you, and this is where I want Cabaret to feel like a place where it can have a political voice. So I met Stephen. We were seeing a show, or I knew you already.
Well, we knew each other, right?
Exactly.
We went to a show together that night.
Yeah, we were going to a show. And why don't you tell the story, my friend?
So one of my Cabaret clients, Jeff McCauley, who I was doing publicity for at the time, had a show right in between Christmas and New Year's at Pangea.
That's right. It was cool.
In the East Village. And after the show was over, you and I were sitting at the bar having our third cocktail, probably.
Yes. After our 2-drink minimum.
Like not quite in a glass like a cup.
Oh, yes, yes.
My Moscow Mule cup is here. So,
cheers, my friend.
Cheers. Anyway,
I'm going to recreate it for everyone watching.
So, as you'll recall, at the end of 2017, we were at the tail end of Donald Trump's first year as president.
It's still in shock.
Right. I was massively depressed that entire year. And beating myself up over trying to find a way to do something, especially regarding voting rights, which is my number one issue and should be everybody's.
Should be everyone's, yep.
Everyone. Like, there isn't even a number 2 or 3.
No, exactly.
Right. So
period.
We were sitting, I remember whining to you about how I couldn't figure out what I could do. I wanted to get involved with voting rights organizations, but all of them were in Washington. Stacey Abrams was in Georgia. I couldn't wrap my head around what I could do.
Yeah, this is a quintessential frustration for all of us. What do we do? How can we contribute?
And then while we were sitting at the bar, I just suddenly, how you get these flashes of inspiration. I said to you, Sandra, I'm in Cabaret. I should do something with Cabaret regarding raising money for Democratic candidates because we need to win the midterm elections.
Absolutely.
And that's how the Blue Wave shows were born.
Just completely juiced, and we talked about all kinds of ideas.
Yeah.
And they were
30 different performers were in it.
So tell our listeners what you created, how you put this together, how much money was raised, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, we raised $6,000 after 5 shows.
Yes.
And the way it worked was there were about 6 performers in each show, as you remember. Mm-hmm. And each of the performers I asked each of the performers to represent a specific candidate.
Yes.
Either a senator
Chris Murphy.
Congressional, right. And they would, and each performer did 2 songs or 3. I think there were some shows that did 3. And they were all political oriented songs.
Yes.
And it was fascinating to me to find out how many songs that were out there that people could choose from. And,
oh, yeah. Well, it's certainly songs that didn't have a political bent, but with that in mind, the lyrics just...
Yeah, like one of the songs you did, American Anthem, which was...
Well, that was very political, there, and I found that because of you asking me into these shows. I had never heard that song before, and it has become...
I had neither. I mean, it was
just a
fabulous.
Fantastic choice, but there were songs that...
some were humorous songs.
Yeah, like the one I wrote.
Exactly.
Don't call it spirits for nothing, about wanting to meditate with alcohol through all the stressful times that we were going through at that time. That we're still going through. Hello.
Wrote original songs. So we had about 30 performers all together through the 5 shows and raised $6,000 and spread that out among the 30 candidates.
Fabulous.
And what happened in November of 2018? The Democrats won 40. I'm not saying this was because we did it, but we won 40 seats. And then we did 2 celebration shows at Don't Tell Mama that January of 2018. Yes. One, I think, was on the anniversary of Martin Luther King's birthday.
Indeed it was.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so that was an experience that I'll never forget. And, I wish
all of us who were in it will never forget it. And to your point about what can I do other than vote? How can I feel engaged in the democratic process? How can I contribute? And those shows were such a glorious outlet for all of us who performed and all of the people that we brought to see the shows.
Yeah, and the passion that the performers had.
Oh,
it thrilled me. It thrilled me to see that people, the performers willing to give up their time and energy and talent with no remuneration.
Quite frequently.
Yeah, quite frequently, because they were just so as passionate about this as I was, and that was just amazing.
That's glorious. So I went down a little rabbit hole around cabaret and politics. And I started to read about cabaret, believe it or not. And Don't Tell Mama, for those listening in, Don't Tell Mama, that's a song. Don't Tell Mama is a song in the show Cabaret, the 1966 musical Cabaret. And so and the whole musical, is people who know the show know that it talks about the rise of nationalism, the poignancy of that, and how that is completely reflected in our world today. Yeah. And I want to explore with you, Stephen, if you see a role of politics melding with cabaret moving forward from this time, and how you see the cabaret community moving forward in general. How do you see that community being rebuilt after COVID? So those are the 2 things I want to begin our next section. We've got to take a break now. Okay. And when we come back, we will visit that and more with Stephen Hanks on the Edge of Every Day. Stay tuned.
Join us every Tuesday at 4 p.m. Eastern for The Mind Behind Leadership, where we focus on what leadership really means to us and to others. We have practical discussions with the CEOs of some of the world's largest companies, owners of small businesses, and experts in psychology and behavior to get that inside track, what to do, what to avoid, and what really happens. Join me, Graham Dobbin, at the new time, 4 p.m. every Tuesday for The Mind Behind Leadership, here live on talkradio.nyc.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the Nonprofit Sector Connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on talkradio.nyc, I host a program, Philanthropy in Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on talkradio.nyc.
Calling all pet lovers.
Pet Avengers, assemble!
On the Professionals and Animal Lovers show, we believe the bond between animal lovers is incredibly strong. It mirrors that bond between pets and their owners. Through this program, we come together to learn, educate, and advocate.
Join us live every Wednesday at 2 p.m. at talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Chipping around, kick my brain to the ground. These are the days it never
And we are back on the edge of every day with Stephen Hanks. So let's dive in. What do you see a merge of politics, the quintessential cabaret understanding of times ago, the roots of cabaret, the political merging, political satire, etc. And how do you see the cabaret community now that we've had this clarion call to rebuild community in all aspects of life, not just obviously in the cabaret community, but COVID has really shined a light on rebuilding community in so many different ways. So how do you feel about the cabaret community rebuilding after COVID?
Well, you asked the question about the merging of cabaret and politics. And, one of the things that's been, and I could be completely wrong about this, people could debate me on this point, but I've been really disappointed over the past 6 years at how little political commentary is coming out of the music community. I remember, when I was a teenager, the 60s, I mean, every other song was a political song. Yeah. There wasn't one pop star or one rock and roll singer who didn't have a protest song in their portfolio. Right. And we're making some commentary. And I don't know, unless it's the genres that I don't follow. I don't hear it coming out of pop music. Well,
and even the way things are released,
right?
Even the way music is dropped now, and I don't know. Does social media have something to do with that with the young people? Do they feel like, Anyway, continue.
Yeah, I mean, so in terms of cabaret. I think here and there are people that do individual shows that can touch on political topics. But listen, to be honest, when we were doing the Blue Wave show, there were websites that reviewed cabaret that would not review our shows.
I remember.
Specifically because they were. I was not eligible for a MAC Award nomination because we were doing political shows.
Yep.
And not that bothers me at all, because I'm glad we did what we did. That was just the way they wanted to approach it. Yeah, but so I don't know. It would be nice if the art form became a little bit more political again. But
I agree. I agree, and we live in very edgy, desperate times.
Yeah, I mean,
we're hanging on. Democracy's got a respirator on.
Yeah, but there's a large segment of the people, even those on the political left, who are very passionate about what's going on, who go to a cabaret show and they don't want to be preached to. They want to get away from politics. I think maybe because there's a 24/7 news cycle and cable news that people are so inundated.
Oh, totally. Politics. And like I said, social media as well.
Yeah, they want to get away from it. So I don't blame them for feeling that way. I mean, as far as the cabaret world in general, in the age of COVID, I think there was a lot of talk at the beginning of the pandemic 2 years ago that this could kill cabaret.
The whole community.
Especially in New York, because it was so bad in New York. Look, the cabaret is an eccentric subculture of entertainment. And it always will be. That doesn't minimize it. I mean, I love the art form, and I loved it when I was involved in it. There were times that I had a love-hate relationship with it for various reasons. But I would hope that it's going to survive and thrive. And there are still hundreds of people in New York and in other places that are producing and performing shows on various levels.
Agreed.
I think as we've talked about, the only danger, well, that may not be the right word, but the only problem with going forward with cabaret is the art form not differentiating between what's really, really good and what's average. And and this is coming from someone who did shows, and I consider myself average because I'm not a professional singer. And I appreciated the ability to be able to perform shows, but I was never under the illusion that I wasn't living out a fantasy.
Right.
I was never doing it because I saw a career in this. And maybe a lot of other people feel that way too, but I wish that the rooms were not so dependent on generating revenue that anybody who just requested
who has the money.
Yeah, because it hurts the really good people.
Yes,
I mean,
it does.
and the same thing happens in the reviewing community in Cabaret, which I was a part of. And there are really good reviewers and writers, and there are really mediocre reviewers and writers. And the mediocre reviewers and writers seem to have a tendency to rave about everything, and no matter how good somebody is. And when you do that, the people on the upper echelon are diminished. Because if everybody is great and everything is great, then frankly, nothing is great.
Well, and people start to not believe it, particularly people who have been in the audience, and they start to not respect it. And, it's one thing to write an uplifting review. It's another thing to have it not necessarily be honest. I realize it's subjective.
And it's a little bit of a chicken and an egg thing too, because if you want to keep the art form going, especially in New York, and you need to have it being written about,
right?
But the publishers don't have the resources to pay people.
Right, exactly. So they're going to get what they're going to get. But this really, again, this is in alignment with how does this incredible art form and community, what would it take to restructure it in a way that, how did it get to this
way?
How did it get this way where everything rests? There's no rests on the performer to bring in everything.
Well, it has to be some kind of different revenue model.
Yeah, exactly.
Because if you turn it into the kind of art form where people had to audition the way they do for a Broadway show part, you might not be able to have enough shows in the rooms to sustain the clubs. So it becomes like a big dilemma. I mean,
of course.
I don't envy the problem that the
no, of course not. And this, we're not pointing any fingers at all.
Exactly.
We're trying to solve this.
Yeah, and I also, by the way, I appreciate the people that volunteer to write reviews for free. I mean,
Oh, totally.
We need them.
Everyone's contribution, absolutely.
It doesn't mean that everybody's doing it on a high level or a high enough level.
But quite frankly, the name of the show is about honest, real conversation. And if the cabaret community can't be real about itself, then we're not going to be able to transform it.
Right. Exactly.
I mean, none of these are digs. It's just, we have to be honest and be willing to take a look at that. And again, it's like our politics. We've got to be willing to be honest about what's working and what is not working. The insanity of today. I just read an article in Daily News that Joe Biden, he did not being able, that his lies are supporting, 3 minutes to the end.
I knew it would go fast.
I know. Well, it's all good. We got our all of the cabaret stuff in, but quickly in less than 1 minute, where do you think democracy is going? There's a big fat question for 1 minute.
It'll go as far as the vote coming up on voting rights takes it.
Yep.
That's the whole ball game in a nutshell.
Yep. And go ahead.
No, I was going to say, everything. And I said this during the Cabaret Blue Wave shows, everything that's going on right now, when you and anybody else that bemoan and say, why are the Republicans doing this? Why is this happening? It boils down to one answer. It's all about white supremacy.
And supremacy.
It's white supremacy. That's why they're doing what they're doing. And the only way to change it is we've got to pass those voting rights acts. There's no other.
Absolutely have to. Okay. So what resources do you suggest? Where do people go? I always say start at the local level. That's a place where you can begin to feel like you're doing something.
Right.
People always think, well, it starts at the bottom. Get into local politics. Get on your school board. Go to your town meetings, whatever. What resources do you suggest?
That's what the right wing is doing. I mean,
totally.
Look, it's the state legislatures that are causing all these problems. The people that identify with Democrats far outnumber people who identify as Republicans, but yet the minority is ruling. And that's not the way I was taught when I was growing up in school.
Yes, and we're going to turn that around through art, through voting rights, etc. So we've come to our end. You can find my wonderful guest, Stephen Hanks, on all of the social media platforms. He's on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, as well as Facebook. You can find me on all of those as well. You can find me at sandrabargman.com, The Plum, th2.com. I want to thank you, Stephen Hanks, for coming on to my show. This has been a fantastic time. I've loved hearing your stories. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. You're a great host. I love doing this with you.
Oh, thank you, my friend. And I want to thank all of you who are listening in. Remember, we are always at the edge of the miraculous. We'll see you next Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thanks again for listening in tonight. Till then, take care.
This is our last dance. This is our last dance. This is ourselves under pressure. Under pressure. Under pressure.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
Do you run or are ready to open your own business? Hi, I'm Jeremiah Fox. I've been operating and opening small business for the last 25 years, and I'm the host of the new show, The Entrepreneurial Web. Tune in every Friday at noon Eastern Time for insights and stories on the nuances of running small business right here on Fridays at noon, talkradio.nyc.
Are you on edge? Hey, we live in challenging, edgy times, so let's lean in. I'm Sandra Bargman, the host of The Edge of Every Day, which airs each Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on talkradio.nyc. Tune in live with me and my friends and colleagues as we share stories and perspectives about pushing boundaries and exploring our rough edges. That's The Edge of Every Day on Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on talkradio.nyc.
Uninformed about menopause and how it impacts on your life? Hi, I'm Pat Duckworth, women's health strategist and host of the Hot Women Rock radio show, empowering women leaders at menopause. Join me every Thursday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, 3 p.m. UK time on talkradio.nyc for interviews with inspirational women who will share their top tips to rock your world.
In a post-COVID world, you may have many unanswered questions regarding your health. Are you looking to live a healthier lifestyle? Do you have a desire to learn more about mental health and enhance your quality of life? Or do you just want to participate in self-understanding and awareness? I'm Frank R. Harrison, host of Frank About Health, and each Thursday, I will tackle these questions and work to enlighten you. Tune in every Thursday at 5 p.m. on talkradio.nyc, and I will be frank about health to advocate for all of us.
Howdy, I am Joseph Franklin McElroy, host of the new podcast,
gateway to the Smokies. It airs on talkradio.nyc every Tuesday night from 6 p.m. to 7. Every episode is dedicated to memorable experiences in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park and surrounding areas. This show features experts and locals who will expound upon the richness of culture, history, and adventure that awaits you in the Smokies. Tune in every Tuesday from 6 p.m. to 7 on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.